Hello there. I am so glad you're here tonight. I am Kat Hobson, and you are watching Fate Mag Radio, the online voice of Fate Magazine. I'm so glad you're here. I am going to start off as I was getting ready to come on the air. I saw a headline, and firefighters were um, were called on a call, and when they left and got out there, they were ambushed, shot, and killed in Idaho. And I am so upset. I can't believe something like that has happened. And I just want to say that I'm so sorry to those families. And I want to say that the people that did that, or the people that think that's a great idea, let's go have fun and shoot some cops or some firefighters, you are evil. This was not something personal with people that you knew. This was not something personal with someone who had done you harm. This was probably just for poops and giggles. And there are repercussions in the universe for this behavior. And I'm glad I'm not you. And I'm going to stop right there, because otherwise we're going to turn this into a whole great big thing, and we're not doing that. Hello, Robert. I'm so glad to see you. I believe in fate too. And I also believe in my guest tonight. I think this is one of my favorite people. He is so awesome. He's so nice. He is probably, and I know a lot of psychics, so I'm going to have to be careful here. But he is my favorite psychic that I've ever worked with and that I've met and interacted with. He's one of the nicest people on the planet. He is he's just really a nice man. He's an author. He has written so many books. He's a cook. He calls himself the fat psychic. He is not the fat psychic. Although if he eats enough of his cooking, he's going to be. And I just want to welcome Mark Fultz, Mark Elliott Fultz. Hey.
Hey, howdy.
Howdy. As we're
doing?
both as Southern as corn.
Yeah.
And Lori says she's watching.
Hey, Lori.
So I am so glad you're here. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for asking me.
Well, I just love it when we get together.
Sure.
You know,
I'm full of it today. So sorry. Sorry, y'all.
He's sassy, guys. He is full of sass.
I'm fat and sassy.
There you go. You were so not fat.
Oh,
but I guess it helps sell books. It helps sell cookbooks.
Lots of books.
And,
yes.
You have been a psychic all of your life. And I think that's cool, because not everybody is aware and in tune with their abilities from the get-go. And I think it's interesting that you paid a hefty price for this too, but you've always done it.
Always. Well, there's always a price to pay for anything. You pay a price to be yourself.
True.
Period. So if you're gonna pay it, you might as well invest in it. So, because you're gonna be paying it anyway.
Yeah, so, that's true.
But I bet. I mean, before I was born, I remember where I was before I was born. So, and
I don't think you've ever told me that.
Oh yeah, before I was born, I remember being a little ball of light, being talked to by a bigger ball of light, which was my soul, because the person you're born into is your spirit, is who you become. Mm-hmm. And so my soul was talking to me, and it was a big ball of light it was in a room, a white room, but we were whiter than the white room. And it was telling me what to expect, and I would be happy, and woo, there you go. And then the next time I remember anything is when I was about 18 months old, and it clicked in, and boom, there I went. And so, and a lot of people believe, remember beforehand. It's just, and when I was 3 and 4 trying to tell my mother about it, she go, shh, 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 So it was very funny. And it was very funny that they were very Christian, but I had a great grandmother who was a spiritualist. And so, I've had, and then a lot of them that were Masons and stuff like that. That's magic, ritual,
Yes, it
and
is.
all that stuff. So they deal with a lot of things. The 33rd degree is talking about, for Masonic, is each disc in your spine. Each one is a level. So, so there are all these people so it's all related to, your spirit, your energy, and how you get in. And we just, as a culture, haven't accepted that. But other cultures have. I mean, in India, you go there and
Yes,
there are people whose children start telling them at 3 years old who they were and where they were, and they'll take them and meet the families that they used to know. So it's very common. But here it's not. So, but when I was about 6,
it's not even close.
not even close. And then when I was 6, I started having psychic experiences, and it freaked them out. And then, and when I was 11, everything started happening. So I found a way to turn it off, really, until I was about 16. And it just blew open.
Was it puberty that did that?
Puberty was during it. I was really, really psychic. I wish I could have not shut it down, but I had to, because the environment I was in, I was being highly abused at home, at school, and everywhere else, because I was getting beaten up all the time. And I just, that was the extra weirdness, because I was already weird. And I said, I just can't deal with this right now. So I was able to turn it down. And then, but when I hit 16 and had my first full-blown ghost experience at my grandmother's house when she died, then it's just been that ever since.
Yeah.
So, because I just accepted it and went, oh, well, whatever. And then I got fascinated with ghosts, and I've always been fascinated with ghosts. And then and psychic stuff and spooky stuff. I mean, even when I turned off my abilities, I was always fascinated. But I had to do it secretly. And so I was always fascinated. And I would have experiences, I just couldn't say them because of the environment I was in. And then when it kicked back in, it kicked in, and that was it. And then when I was older, landed on my head a few times, then dropped on my head, talked to the dead, and come back.
It's still one of my favorite one of your sayings. So
yeah, well, that's the truth. Because it's what happens is the pineal gland has a lot of magnetite in it, and when you get hit in the head or you have trauma, it shifts that magnetite, which affects your electromagnetic field, which is your aura. So when you have a head trauma or a death trauma, it shifts that magnetic field that you've got because of the magnetite. And
I have this little scar right here.
Yeah.
From 7 years old.
Yeah. Well,
when I got jumping on a bed.
Yeah.
And missed. And that was about when everything went nuts. As far as nuts as it went, because everything changed. And I had no idea. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but you just blew me out of the water, as you often do. But that explains a whole lot, right?
That explains a whole lot. Well, I mean, I was telling my friend the other day, I've had at least 6 concussions in my life,
right?
And starting at a very young age, because I mean, I had people who like to go for the head, and but it's And two, I mean, a year ago, March, last March, so it's a year and a half or so.
Yeah.
I had passed out because I'd had hiccups for 9 days because I have Marfans, and that's one thing you go through sometimes. And the ninth day, I'd gone and got my shots, came back, and the muscles relaxed. But when they relaxed, I had this one big last hiccup, and it took all the air out of me. And I passed out in the bathroom door, and I just fell like a tree and landed on my neck on the edge of the tub. And for 6 months after that, it was hell on wheels. But I mean, I lived. I woke up with my hand in the toilet and went, "Oh, I'm alive."
Yeah.
I was worried more about my left hand in the toilet. I thought, "Oh, please let it be flushed. Please don't, please, no." And but
So
it
sorry.
really jumped my abilities up there. And so I thought, well, what
That
if,
jumped your abilities up.
yeah, I
I
mean,
know where your abilities were coming from. Good Lord, if they jumped up.
oh,
Really?
they jumped up, honey.
Oh my
Jumped
gosh.
up. Since we did that thing we did at your thing, it has jumped up and
Well, we
gotten
need to play
crazy.
together.
Hmm?
We need to
Oh
go
yeah,
find something to do.
we should do something.
Yes.
I'm really good at doing. I mean, the channeling is really good right now. So,
We need to find somewhere to do that.
yeah,
Because
because
I'm going to tell you, you blew me out of the water. Guys, this guy, a friend of mine had an issue in a property that he had just bought. We were dog park friends. This is the guy who went with me because Bo, my friend's dog, would not go in this house. There were four row houses there,
yep,
and um, two of them were having stuff. All of them were, but we talked to two.
yeah, we got to
And
talk.
Mark fixed the first one so that this poor dog could live in that house and not. When we got there, this dog was acting like it wanted to just die.
Yeah,
When we left there, that dog was skipping like a hippity doo dah.
yeah,
And
and
then,
actually, it came in
yeah,
there wagging its tail.
where the
When we
spirit
were
had been.
when the spirit had been because we were pushing the spirit out,
Hmm.
and this dog who was laying there just comatose. I
Yes.
thought it was
Miserable dog.
miserable dog, and it came in happy, wagging its tail. I would like to know how the follow up on that is. So you have to find out for
Well,
me
we can follow up on that. I will do that. But
because
also the spirit that had been
in the first one,
um mhm, was also Daisy. Was well, we said Daisy was the dog's name,
yeah,
but the one that we had gone to my friend's house um was my first time being with Mark channeling, or with anybody channeling, to be quite honest, and tripped me out. I mean, I've been a paranormal investigator for what? I've done this paranormal experience for 10 years. I was an investigator for like 4 or 5 before that. And then, you know, never ever saw anything. And I've been with people that said that they could and they did not. But what blew me away the most was your physical transformation into the being, the person that you were channeling. I
yeah.
did not know that was a thing. And I was so shocked and a
Well,
little freaked out.
and a little freaked out. And most people do get that way, but say, I love to do it.
You're good at
Uh,
it.
I have after all these decades, I have like a Teflon coating. So once I channel it, then I can. I mean, the last one I did not too long ago, the person was laughing because that was with one of the people was laughing because I disconnected so quickly. Well, I'm like, well, it's like a slide, honey. When they're out of me, they're out of me. I ain't keeping them, and they ain't
I
getting
believe that.
it.
Yes.
And because it's a Teflon coating, but and I love to do it. It is so strange looking to the modern eye. I mean, in the 1800s, early 1900s, it would have been common. And
Yeah.
now it's just, but I mean, I love to watch it when you can see the face change, the hair change, the voice change, the
All of the above.
posing.
Angie were surly,
Yeah. Well,
because he was a jerk.
it was a real
And
joke.
the wicked thing was your facial structure changed.
Yeah.
Your hair, and you do not, I mean, he just kept talking because your bangs were bothering him.
Yeah.
And then, and then he was such a schmuck because we're sitting there talking, and he's describing what he had been doing, what was going on with him, and he's like, well, and I'm not black. And I said, well, I didn't say you were. And he said, well, the pictures that they drew, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not black. And I'm like, well, who drew your pictures? Well, they were in the post office.
Yeah.
And I said, well, why is your picture in the post office? And he said, that's nothing to you. That's not your business. And I said, did you kill somebody? And he was very saucy with
He was
me.
a jerk. He was very jerky.
He was a schmuck. He was the biggest jerk. And I was just so blown away because A, you would never talk to me like that.
Yeah.
B, your whole facial structure, your hair, everything was different. Your voice was different. And if I had not seen that, I don't know if I would have really I didn't understand what channeling was until then. I did not. And so I was just kind of like, okay. And the more I kept talking, the guy did not want to give information up, but ultimately we found out that he had dogs sicked on him. He hated dogs, hence the dogs. And
there were dogs in each of the houses that we investigated, and the dogs were terrified of this person.
Yes.
And that's because the dogs had been set on him before, and he hates them.
Yes.
And did your friend's dog, did it ever calm down for them? Good.
Yes.
Good.
Yes. But it's very odd because I still feel that energy.
Yeah.
When I think I told you I was on my way to Pensacola Beach and I came past Joe Patty's. I didn't think about it, right?
Yeah.
That's just the way I go all the time. And I'm going and I'm passing Joe Patty's, which is across the street from those houses. And I just felt for a second, because I wasn't thinking about it. And it was kind of like, hey, you know.
Yeah.
Like,
well, and they're like that. Once you have, connected with them, then, they'll wave at you. But,
and it was funny. Oh, and I'm going to tell you, Lori's in chat.
Hey,
and
Lori.
Something that we had discussed as we were getting ready, because we're sitting there, it's been going on, 2 hours that you were channeling this guy?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, he didn't tell us how to bring him out. And Lori's like, we don't know how to do this. And I'm like,
oh, nobody brings me out. I bring me out.
But we didn't know that. We didn't know that. Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm just like, uh-oh. But I also know you, and I know that you would never put yourself in any kind of compromised situation. So I wasn't really worried about it, but it was different.
It was different. Well, and see, I have it all preset so that, and if it turns into something too weird, then I can disconnect it right then. But when it's over, it's over. It's done. They're out. They're gone. Well,
to me, it felt pretty weird.
It is very weird, but, and I didn't expect to go there to do a channeling.
Yeah.
But when the spirits go do it, I do it, and then there it is. So, and like I said, I just did one not too long ago that was pretty dramatic. But it's not for everybody to watch.
It's
I mean,
not.
some people get freaked out, but it's one of the most ancient art forms. I mean,
Yeah.
to be able to be kind of the oracle, to be able to speak to the spirits in a safe and controlled way, and used to be done all the time. So it's just a
Well,
part of my life.
it's cool though. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I have other friends that have some of your abilities. I don't know anybody else like you. I really don't.
Well,
And
the
you're
reason
special.
I'm a special K. The reason for that, I mean, I trained for stuff and I did all that, but when I was killed and came back from it, that kicked it in a different way. So when I came back from that, I tell people I can show you how to a certain point, but then it's up to you to take your stuff, but to take it to whatever level you're going to take it to. But I can say, when I was killed and came back, that gave me the extra thing. But
Yeah.
I can't suggest that to anybody.
No, I
Uh,
think I'll opt out of that particular process.
I don't
But
I don't
that's
suggest that particular process, but
and
it is
that's something that we didn't really touch on. You mentioned it a couple of times.
oh wow.
And because Robert in chat doesn't know you. And so and others listening won't too, but because you literally died.
Oh yeah. And I know a lot of them, the people who have heard it and are like, "Oh yeah, we know this story. He's told us before." I'm sorry if you've heard it before. But it's such a pivotal thing in my life. It's where everything comes from
Yes.
because I died when I was 30. I was attacked in a random act of violence. When I went to the hospital and got in there, and everything started settling in, and I started dying, and they put me in a room to die, quit feeding me, quit
Yeah.
giving me everything, let me starve to death because they think that's humane, and which is we're coming up on July. If you go in the hospital in July, it's training month. So if you know anyone in the hospital in July, they are training, they are practicing. That's when the death rate goes. So if you have someone in the hospital, be very, very vigilant. Because to them, it's school. But if they get an F on their paper, you die. So,
Yeah.
you have to really be on them. But
That's
anyway,
important information.
because I found out, and they were super shocked when I left. But I had a wonderful near-death experience, and two of them, when I started dying,
Yeah.
and this is an interesting. Sin Schrader Hill is doing a book about this stuff. She's about to release a book right now that has near-death experiences, angel experiences, people's near-death. And so she's doing that. I just did some illustrations for her. Hi, Sin, how you doing? And, until we've done some books like Shades of Angels and
Yeah.
have a lot of these stories. But I had such a wonderful experience, and I've known the people that I've known that should have had wonderful experiences, but that were freaked out were my Christian relatives and stuff.
Yeah.
They just freaked out, and they were not having a good time when they were dying. But when I started dying, I was like, oh yes, this isn't too bad. And I mean, I was freaked out, but it was still cool.
Well, your living had been kind of rough.
My living, my dying, it was all rough.
Yeah.
And it wasn't going to get easier when I came back, but but the death experience changed it, and everything I got to see when I was at the edge of it is what I'm doing the psychic worm stitch, which I'm working on
Right.
right now. So in a few months, that should be out.
I'm ready.
And I am too. I'm ready to get this stuff out. You thought that cookbook was something. I can write about the universe easier than I can do the cookbook.
I believe it.
That cookbook. Woo! But I'm going to include things for people, how to do the meditations, how to really kind of do their energy, how to get a discipline. But it's up to you to get to the discipline. But also, I mean, my mother's mother was psychic as get out. She was a little Christian, but she was psychic and had wonderful experiences that I thought were wonderful. That I thought
Right.
was, and some of it was not so cool, but she was very good. Um, and I come from people who have it and who do it, and then but it's like in everybody, everyone's got the ability or the mechanism. It's just what you do to it. If it's important to you, it'll come to the surface. If you have traumas, sometimes that'll kick it in, and then you just have to figure out, oh, that's what it is.
Right.
Like I said, I've had, when I was 11, my father gave me my first concussion. And I got several during the years when I was just a kid. And but and now that I look at it, I'm like, well, what if I'd been a person that happened to and I didn't get the benefit of being psychic? It would just been I would have had my head cracked.
Yeah, for no reason or with no reward.
Yeah. And when I was dying, the experience that happened was so transformative for me in the long run that you can't go, well, I wish that hadn't happened, or regret. I can't do regrets, because it's like, but I am who I am because of all of that.
You are.
But you end up who you are supposed to be. It's up to you to get there. And so I try to do that, but I'm going to try and tell people how I think it works, and maybe they can work on that and see if it helps them. But if something happens and I've known so many people who've had near-death experiences that don't have the change, so, and then there are some that do, or not to the extent of like, for me, I take it a lot further because I'm just that kind of weirdo. To me, it was like, Brett, now I was telling someone yesterday, I said, when I do things like ghost hunting or whatever, I'm like, bring the color book, I will bring the crayons.
Yeah.
And I'm like that. I'm like, I'll throw myself into it head first. And I love to do that. And I think that, but you've got to be brave enough to do that and not be worried about.
And it is a brave factor.
It is a
bravery factor.
You got to trust yourself, and that comes from discipline. I know somebody who told me that a while back, who goes, up until I was confident in it kind of a slur, like they thought I was being arrogant.
Bravado.
And I thought, I'm not being arrogant. You have to know who you are and what you can do.
Yeah.
I don't have the ego like other people, and it's been good for me to be poor all my life, because money is an okay thing, but it's great to have to live, but it's not my end all be all. And which I've been very happy for. There's money can be a very good thing. And if it comes into my life at some point, it will be a relief, but it's not going to affect me the way it does other people, because
it won't change you from being you.
Well, I've met big names before.
Sure.
That I really was enamored of. And one of them, he was just, you could tell he was trying to do his thing, but I was like, he really hates this. He really hates having to fool with people. And and my only issue is because I'm disabled, because of the back pain and stuff like that. I have to make sure people don't think if I'm sitting here squinting or doing this, it's because of them.
Yeah.
But I feel very blessed to have been given the gifts I've given, and I've been very blessed to help people that I've been able to help. And it doesn't make it easy; it makes it harder, because then you deal with people who want to use you and then abuse you or weird. I mean, ghost hunters and stuff are very strange people, and I've had some run-ins.
Hey, I
In
resemble that remark.
well, no, not you, not you.
But
But I'm talking about in my life, I've just had to deal with some that they do everything except do, it's just like, just do it, get the evidence, and move forward,
mhm.
But they let their egos get in the way, and they let this and that. And it's like, so I think people need to relax a little. Um, Everyone seems so hungry to be something, to be a star, to have a shoe, to have a thing, and it's like, just, if you have good work, the money will come, the
Yeah.
everything else will fall in place. So do the work.
Yeah.
And so I try to teach people, don't let the ego get in the way. Because when the ego gets in the way, it's never good. You have to know who you are and what you can do, because that's your tools. And if you don't know your tools, then how can you use them? And if you can't use them, how
Yeah.
can you teach other people to use them?
And how
And
can you help people with them?
and to help people with them. And that's pretty much what I am. I'm a helper and a teacher. But
Mhm.
but somebody thought I was arrogant because I was being confident. And I was like, how is being confident a bad thing? Idiot. So,
There are a
so
lot of people who are intimidated by confidence,
they
and I'm going to.
they are. And that, to me, that's another thing. It's like, I don't get that. Insecurity.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like, no, 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 no. If you want to do this stuff, if you want to be psychic, if you want to do ghosts, if you want to do all of it, do it, but do it ethically. Do it without boundaries, as far as just go in there and figure it out safely. And,
Well,
um,
and
you know,
those boundaries, those lack of boundaries are like not my thing. Right?
yes, I know.
I mean,
Well,
I'm,
yeah, but I mean, you got to be reasonable. You can
yeah,
say, "Oh, I ain't doing that," but there, look at that.
yeah.
And not be afraid, but don't be stupid. And but when
That's
I do
always sound
something,
advice.
well, when I do channeling, a lot of people freak out over that, and I'm like, but you're safe while I'm
Yeah.
doing it. It's not about you. It's contained. And when it's done, baby, that thing is gone.
Yeah.
So, but a lot of people think, when you do this stuff, then something's wrong with you because you're doing it. Something's wrong with the fact that you're doing it. And, but it's a natural gift.
Yes.
So,
But like
it's an interesting one.
in your case, that was both mine and Lori's first time. I mean, and I know I would never bet against you, not
Eh,
in anything, right?
okay, thank you.
But I'm sitting
Well,
there and it was such an obvious takeover. I knew you allowed it. Okay.
well,
I knew you were
it's a
controlling that.
projection. It's a
Yes.
because when they're coming, I'm projecting what the image, the energy is. It
Okay.
doesn't take over me, because that's the thing. I'm such a control freak. I have the system set up to where it does not. That's another thing, when people take in the energy and they have it prepared, and then when they try to get it out,
Hmm.
you've just infected yourself. And
Yes.
that's where you have to learn how to do the mechanism of having a film or a energy layer that it's not able to get in, because I've seen people
Like Teflon.
really messed up,
Yeah. Like Teflon.
like Teflon. That's why I call it my Teflon coating, because it
Yes.
is. And like I said, the person that was laughing when I disconnected, because I mean, I was doing, you could hear 3 and 4 voices at one time. And then all of a sudden, when it was done, boom, I shook it out and I was up, and they were like, They
I
either thought I
bet.
was nuts or they couldn't believe I did it that quick. Well, it's like, but I've been doing it for decades,
Hmm.
personally. And when I got interested in it, everyone, it was the fad thing, and there were people doing it in a strange kind of way.
Yeah.
And you could tell it wasn't in there, that it wasn't happening. But there was this guy who channeled Marilyn Monroe. And I think I've told you this one before.
Yeah.
But it was on a show. It was in the 90s, I think. And he channeled Marilyn Monroe, and I felt it when he did it. And I went, because you could feel it feeling the energy slipping
Okay.
into his skin. He did it differently than I did, but he had it slipping into the skin, and I went, well, that's real. And I thought, for this balding older gentleman, it would be like me, trying to do Marilyn Monroe. And but he was talking to her first husband, James Daughtery, and he answered things for him that James went. He said that was something we knew, so you could tell it was real. So
Right.
after that, I went, that's it. You've got to get that feeling, because it's like you're slipping into, it's like you're pulling a robe on, you're sliding into the skin. But you have to do it where it's a safe skin.
Right.
So, and I've had people telling me lately, "Oh, I don't have to do protection before I go in that place," and I'm like, "Go for it," and they think they're scientific, and I'm like, "Go for it. You just go right ahead."
Yeah.
And it was a place that I went in. My aura was around
Yeah.
me like a condom. It was like, don't touch anything, don't do it, And it was like, I
Yep.
went in and I did my work, but honey, I didn't touch a dang thing. And I actually, when I came out of the place, there were things in there I looked at, but I didn't see, because my system went, nope, 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 nope. Just do what you got to do and get out. And
Yeah.
then later, my friend was showing me pictures, and I was going, I didn't see that. And I looked at it. I went past
Right.
it. And I said, my system was going, nope, 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 nope. And I only saw certain things. And, but these other people were like, wide open. And it's like, I don't have to do anything.
Well,
Um,
I just
oh, yeah. Actually, I have. And
well, this
just
we're going to have to say what this is because not everybody's going to have chat if they're
yeah,
just doing audio only. And so
yeah,
Robert said, "Has Mark ever channeled entities that
yeah.
never walked the earth as humans?"
Yes. And actually, that was something I experienced not too long ago. And because of the protection I have, because I do my meditation every day in prayer, kind of like in a prayer way, but my prayers would be different than most people's. But I do my energy work, so
Hmm.
I have it going. But yes, there's plenty of energies that are here that have never been human. Um, and there are some that are a combination of our DNA and their DNA. So there are things that know our DNA codes, and can access our fields. But yeah, I just had that happen not too long ago, and I can do that, and it doesn't. I can do it. I mean, I went into a place that actually, I will tell people, demonic energy and stuff like that is very rare, very, very rare. And actually, I got to go into a place where there were four. And
Did you?
yes, I did. We can't talk about it really right now, but
That's
it
good.
was, but I knew what I was talking about before I went in the place.
Yeah.
And the owners, I told them everything I'd seen before I came, because I told nobody to tell. I made sure nobody told me anything. And I drew out the building before I had never seen it. Got outside the gate and was going to, telling them where human remains were and a certain dark energy that was there. And they went, "Oh, yeah, come on in." And they took me to it. And I would say there was the remains of people, no less than a dozen people on that property. There were 4 of that kind of, and not. There are a lot of energies that are fine and dandy and benign that are non-human. This place was basically a factory for it. So I had to go in, and I was wearing my 120-year-old ritual robes. And I went in, and they were from the occult, from the era I was when I was trained. But they're very dark artists. And there are people out there, whatever you want to believe is what you want to believe and follow it. I'm just don't do anything to hurt people, kind of thing.
Right.
If that's the way you believe, that's the way you go do what help yourself. It's not what I like to do, but I know how to do it because I am a trained metaphysician and a third degree. And and I'm finding people are going back to doing the 3rd degree systems and stuff and going back into discipline. But yeah, I had to deal with the type. It was a non-human, never had been human, but it was brought up into that place for it's basically what we would call a transferring of self factory, because they were they're getting all this stuff and putting it into people. And but I did get to channel one of the energies that oh my Lord, good Lord, the smell of that thing. Woo! But I had a Teflon coating. I was able to talk to it. The other things I just kept at bay, and then when I went home, I took a bleach bath and kept on moving. But I can communicate with other energies because we're only one level of energies and frequencies and beings. There are, if you think about dimensional layers, dimensions are made every year. So each year, the dimensions, as they're getting older, they get a little heavier and they're pulled. It's like, and in the forest, all the living things, when they die or transition, they turn into soil and into oil. And the dimensions we're in right now will get heavy and turn oil, and they turn into soil, into oil, and then they get pulled into the center of the earth because of the magnetism. Then the heat of the center of the earth purifies it, vibrates it, and then it recycles, and then you get fresh dimensions made out of the old dimensions. So it's like we have fresh dimension out here, and as it gets older every year, and you're passing through new layers of dimensions every year, really 2 times a year. And all of the stuff that was in the dimension you're in the level you're in, eventually elements of that get pulled down and transitioned to different, to soil or food or thought. And some of it is like thinking energy, but there's all sorts of thinking things out there that have never been human. There are elementals, there are all sorts of stuff, there are spirits, there are and just because something is made out of dark material doesn't mean it's negative. It just means it's just made up, it's just functions differently, because a lot of the things that feed off of the elementals are feeding off of the soil and the oil and the energy that's come down there to that level. They feed off of that. So sometimes their plasma is a little darker and a little thicker. But I have experienced some very beautifully interesting non-human energies, and I've met very wicked ones that are they're just they're like a parasitic thing with looking for food, and
Right.
people through
Hunters.
ritual, and people who bring things from the oil, from the soil and oil deeper levels, and bring them up into our level. You've just taken those darker energies from their food source. So when they come
Mhm.
into our level, then they have to learn how to eat around us. And so that's when, you start getting the things that like to scare people. And if you get scared, you put out thermal heat so it can
Yeah.
absorb the thermal heat. It can access look at your aura, and if your aura is damaged or down, or it can work on you to break you down, kind of thing. And it's all about food, and it's not as much about a spiritual thing as it's food. Now they can and there are types like the one I just experienced not too long ago. It was a type that is definitely brought in and put into a lot of energy is neutral until you apply the energy to it. And this
Mhm.
place was made to be a fear factory. And so, because if you're afraid and you feed it, everything was made to feed it. So,
Well,
um,
then I
so
have a question about that.
yeah, maybe you
If
have
it,
it.
did people did people make this fear factory intentionally in order to create the negativity that would be a danger to other people?
Oh yeah, I can't talk about it very much right now.
Well,
We'll
that's
talk about
okay.
it behind the scenes because
Yeah,
because people want to get attracted to those things and they want to go to it and they go, oh, where it is, or where it is, where it is. And I don't want to feed it,
absolutely.
but I
Well, I
have
have
to tell
another
my
question
kids
about.
with it. Sure.
Okay, because I was on an investigation years ago,
Yeah.
and this guy that should not have been doing any of the stuff that we were
Yeah.
doing, but anyway, he was there, and so the person whose home we were in had a lot of stuff going on, and the EMF coming off her was a 7.8.
Wow.
So on my meters, right? So anyway, I actually called the person that designed the software I was using and said, "What is up with this?" He was like, "Oh, if it's not a pacemaker or a TENS unit, you
Yeah.
got something going on there and you should be careful." Right. So
Hey.
anyway, we're outside and this guy, I mean, just I don't know if I've told you this or not, but this guy is doing like a Reiki cleaning on this woman,
Hmm.
right? And so I had my back to them and I felt something just slap my elbow and it felt like, those little prickly pears like chestnuts live
Yeah.
in. It felt like a chestnut ball hit my elbow. And
Ooh.
I turned around and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And I see him just
Yeah.
throwing. And I had to come apart and a cat fit like few people have seen. And so I went home and I called another friend of mine and said, "Look, this has happened. It's still attached to me. I can't get between it and I need help. I
Yeah.
can't do this." And she was like, "Oh, well, but you're going to have to do, cleansing soaks. You're going to have to get that arm into the tub."
Yep.
And so, and I follow instructions when it's not
Yeah.
something I
Oh,
know about and somebody does. I follow directions.
you have to.
And so, but yeah, this guy was just throwing energy off of this woman that was having these issues and just slinging it everywhere, not throwing it to the ground. And I was just
Yeah.
like, "What are you
Yeah.
doing?" Oh,
He was
I
slinging it.
love
He
you.
wasn't showing. He wasn't being careful where he was throwing it.
No, he did not know. He
And he
should not
really
have
should
been
have
doing that.
grounded it. He should have grounded it and
Yeah.
sent it into a kind of a filtering it,
Yeah.
not slinging it out where someone else could pick it up. You
Yes.
know,
And
uh, and that's well, a lot of
so,
people that do energy work. Some of the most sick people I know are energy workers because they
yeah.
pick up too much stuff, and it's
Well,
like
they expose themselves.
Yeah.
It's like they don't know how to deal with what they're
Yeah.
coming in contact with. And you have to protect yourself.
Yes. And you
And
have to learn how to filter.
mhm,
Because if you don't, you'll get it. You'll get what you're
yeah,
taking off of somebody else. And it's not your
yeah,
karma. It's not your thing. So then all of a sudden you're taking on someone else's karma
yeah.
because you're
And
pulling it out of them. And
yeah,
so you have to be careful. It's not, and it's a technique. It's
well,
and
it
whether or
is,
not he
but
meant to do it to you, the thing is, did he mean to do it, or was he
no, he
just
just
doing it?
didn't know. I
Well,
mean, which is when you don't do it.
which is
You
when you
know?
don't do it, and so
Yeah.
that's just accidental.
Well,
Uh,
yeah, it's very angering
yeah,
though.
but
I was
and that's
frustrated. I wasn't angry, I was frustrated.
frustrated.
But
Yeah,
well, because it hurt for one thing, and I knew what it was for another.
yeah,
And, I'm sitting there seeing the issues that this woman is having. And I mean, this was stuff that she had picked up over time. I mean, she did things that I found offensive, but
yeah,
other people might not.
yeah,
And, the way that she introduced herself to us, well, you know, I'm a graveyard stomper, a Ouija board user, and I do this and I do that. And I'm like, oh, okay.
okay. Well, I mean,
Indiscriminate, you
whatever floats
know?
people's boats,
Yeah.
but there are certain people when they're doing things, I'm like, "Ooh, sister, I'm going to stay over here,"
Yes.
I'll just go over here
Yes. And
because it's like,
yes, sister.
chaos.
Yeah.
Uh, some people really love chaos, and some people do this stuff like the person I was dealing with who thought
Yeah.
they don't need protection. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And I'm
I
like,
know.
and it's like, yes, you do.
You
And
have to be protected.
because this is
And
energy, this is a science of its own. And they
yes,
don't think it's science. Well, it is science. It's
it is science.
metaphysics.
Yes.
It has energy in that tunnel, you dummy. So,
Yeah.
but people do this, and and doing talking boards. You have to be. They work,
Yeah. They do.
but if you don't know what you're doing, and if you really can't see what you're talking to, which my lucky thing is I can see if I'm what I'm
Yeah.
talking to. When you take the door off the hinges and just open the door for them,
Yeah.
and then don't close the door, that happens a lot. Because I knew a really sweet little girl in Chattanooga back in the 90s, and she'd come in and always very happy, bubbly, cute, very cute little girl. And she came in one day and her hair was sticking up like this, and she was fried. You could tell she hadn't
Oh,
slept in 3 days.
oh
And I could
no.
see this dead guy behind her in a jacket, looked like a biker. And I said, "Where'd you get your boyfriend?" And she goes, "My friend and I, we were doing a Ouija board and we got scared and we threw it in the closet." And I said, "Did you close it?" And they went, "No." And I said, "Bring it to me." She says, "It's in the car." And she brought it and I closed
She
it.
brought it to you.
Yes, and I closed it and got it rid of it because
Yeah.
he walked right in with her, and he was dead, and he was real close to her aura. But what had happened is when it scared them so bad, they threw it in the closet and they didn't close it, they didn't touch it, and he just came right on out.
Yeah.
And after that, she was fine. She was back to being cute and bubbly. But I mean, her hair was, and she was fried. And I was like, but at least I knew, it was a simple one to take care of.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
have
they're
known
all
people
simple for you.
but I have known some that have not been so lucky, So, and I've known people who've been possessed. I know very few, but I've known one that it ended in them getting decapitated. So,
What?
and that's how the spirit got out. So I can't tell that story out here all the way. All I can, but I will tell you, they got decapitated by a refrigerator. Yes.
With no sharp edges.
Hmm?
Refrigerators don't have sharp edges.
Well, no, they were hauling it around in their car. And
Oh,
this was
okay.
a special person. I can't really tell the whole story of the person because it's really crazy. But they were very crafty, and but they had gotten possessed. The last time I'd seen them, when they would talk to you, when it would click in, her eyes were very hazel. But when they would talk to you, and the energy would come in, the eye would turn black from the center out, and then she would start talking in a foreign accent. She was but she was quite the character. But she wanted to go to Florida and spend a couple of months and get over this. You know, she was getting over it. And she had cut the top of her car because she was a mechanic, and cut the top off of her Volkswagen and she was staying in a campground, and she had a air conditioner on blocks inside her tent, and she kept her refrigerator in her car, and she'd been possessed probably about 4 or 5 months. And but she ran through a light, hit somebody, and she was hauling the refrigerator in her car, and it went forward and cut her head off.
Oh,
and then
my.
the spirit got out and went to the next one. So,
Whoa.
yeah. So, I've seen it.
If it were anybody but you that told me that,
It would be hard to swallow.
I would not swallow it.
Let me tell you what. When I would sit there and talk to Michelle, and it would go click, and her personality, everything had changed. So, she was very damaged.
Yeah.
She was very pitiful, but she's very damaged, and very funny. Wow. But toward the end, she was so mean. Toward the end, I was trying to be nice to her, but she was mean to everybody at the end. But she was getting over it. It was getting better, and I think it just was like, I can't do anything else in here, and so she got decapitated, and it went out.
Are they trapped? Are they trapped in that body when there's a possession going on? I thought they could come and go.
Well, some of them, it depends upon the energy. That one was able to get out. There are some of them that will stay in the body and eat the decomposition. There are some that will go to the dry place, which is sometimes the graveyard, or the cavities in the bodies, and just eat decomposition and stuff until they can find somewhere to go, or they'll find somewhere to be. And that not necessarily just that kind of energy, but I have had a few experiences with that kind of energy, very rarely.
Yeah.
And that was a rare one. I mean, that was so obvious that it was.
Well, it wasn't trying to hide.
Crazy. Oh, well. And, but she was something else. But when that happened, I thought, well, it didn't surprise me that it was so dramatic. But that's who that person was. She was really something else. When she was not that way, she was very sweet. She'd kill for you. But when she was in that state, oof, just terrible. And but she was getting past it, and that's why I found somewhere else. That happened, and then that was the end of that. But there are some of them, they find places to be, and after that, then and then some of them just go back into the energy level they came from, and then they just transition into something else. And then there's other ones that people pull up through ritual, and they get a new life, they get a new form, they get a new energy chance, so yeah. So, and it depends on what it is.
When you say they pull them up through ritual and they're getting a fresh chance, do they become their own entity, or do they need a vessel?
Depends. It's not, I mean, there's many, many different things.
Okay.
There are some that are more in control of their thoughts and energy and fate than others, and then there are some that are just they have to. There, some of them they have to be able to vibrate or throb with the person, and the aura needs to be weakened enough to where they can vibrate into it and then download like an internet virus. And that's why, when people have the infections, they get worn down, they can't sleep, they're going because they get tired. The more tired you get, and then when it gets in and it starts talking, it gets into your cerebellum, gets through into your pineal stalk, and gets up to the back of your head, and then it starts talking where you can hear it. And then if the voice, while you're getting tired, it doesn't get tired, so it can talk, 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 and eventually it just wears you down until you think that that voice is your voice, and then it wears you down, and then weakens the person. And if they can't push it out, then it becomes their conscience, and they start making decisions based on that. And that is, but people can push things out of their system, but you have to be in control of your system. And if you aren't, you
Right.
have to get in control of your system. And if you're not ready to get rid of it, you ain't going to get rid of it.
Right.
And I know somebody who bitches about something that happened with them, but they they asked for it. I mean, I told them, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. They did it, and now 3 years later, they're still, every time they talk to me, they bitch about this thing, and I'm like, good luck on that, good luck on that.
Yeah.
And they
Well,
think they're energy controller, but they don't know how to act. I've met people. I go, they can't even feel their ectoplasm. They don't know how to bring up the energy to where, because your ectoplasm, what that is the glue. It's a functioning glue that keeps your spirit in your body, in your physical form, but it also it's a living fluid that when you think, it's part of that. It's a thinking fluid. And I try to train people how to feel it. And see, I can do it. I can feel it. I can pull it up, and if you can understand your energy, your ectoplasm, your material, then if you can understand your system, then you can feel where everything is and cleanse and push out any infections. And but I know a lot of people who think they're really on top of the energy thing, and they can't,
right.
and they don't know how, and they won't listen to anyone telling them, well, this is what you do, because they can't get it from here to here.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when I was learning stuff in the 80s, 70s, 80s, everything we had when we were learning processes or ritual or energy, you had to put it, you could read other things, but you had to write it down in your own hand.
Mm-hmm.
And when you did your recipe
Yeah.
books and your books of shadows and whatever, that's your recipe book. And you had to make your own recipes. You had to make your own things, because it's the way of getting it from the third eye down to the fingers.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, to have
through
the practical
the,
knowledge as
yeah,
opposed to just the
yeah,
verbal
just
knowledge.
the verbal or the thinking. Thinking is a major thing. It's the intent, but you gotta get it in those fingers. You
Yeah.
gotta get it. You gotta understand your body. And I'm finding a lot of people who, it's very hard to focus, and it's very hard to do meditation, and it's real hard to understand their body. But then they're doing energy work,
Mm-hmm.
but they can't control, basic meditation. So they need to go reset, learn a good meditation that you really feel,
Mm-hmm.
and then go from that. But a lot of people, they're doing magic, and they're doing ritual, and they're doing energy work, but they really don't know themselves. And that's part of the process. I think you have to learn your, because we're full of minerals, we're dirt.
Yes.
When we die, there is not a way to really, I mean, there are mummies on this earth, but there is no way for us to preserve ourselves perfectly after we die. I mean, they may find a mummy and say, oh, they're perfect, they're beautiful, but they're dead, they look dead, they've decomposed somewhat.
Yes.
We cannot stop decomposition, because as soon as our body dies and the spirit transition, the body goes into, it's very alive with decomposition. It goes, all right, now we don't need that, let's turn this on, and and it begins to
Yeah.
turn back into dirt, back into soil,
Which is the
back.
natural process.
And then when it turns, it becomes dark energy later, because it gets broken down and becomes soil and becomes, but we've kept ourselves away from it, by putting ourselves in metal boxes, pickled in juice that doesn't do anything except poison the earth. And, but you have to understand who you are, your basic earthiness, and how to access your energy, how to feel your energy, how to direct from here into here.
Mm-hmm.
And because when you're getting it from here to your fingers, you're having to go from here through the pineal gland, through the pineal stalk, through the cerebellum, through down into the chakras, down into the arm, down into, you have to understand your electrical system. And that just comes from practice. Some people have it natural, some people don't. But I see a lot of people practicing stuff that they don't know how to control, basic stuff, and then they're calling things in that are for entertainment purposes, and or just scare people. And then when it's over, it's like, all right, I'm done. Well, it's not done.
It's not done.
And you've brought something into your sphere that it's looking for food. It's looking for a way to live, and you've taken it out of its food source where it was.
And you've
So
become that food source.
you can, yes, and the people around you and your pets, and it can become, people getting sick, animals dying, people dying, depending upon what it is. Sometimes you just get irritating energies that bug the crap out of you. So, and out of ritual, sometimes, it's like little fractals happen. I've seen people doing ritual, and it's like sparks out of a thing. It'll be like little fractal shadow people things.
Yeah.
And I can tell when I'm in a house with those, because it's just like these little wild shadows you see everywhere. They're just everywhere. They're little sparks of things, but they're not conscious in the way we think of conscious. They just know enough how to feed, how to do.
It's an awareness, right?
Yeah.
More than
because when you do energy, say if you don't understand that you can put your consciousness into something, and you're doing ritual or intent or thought, you can overextend your DNA basically and put it into energy that might have been neutral, but now you've given it a little bit of thought. And the basic energies are the need to feed, the need to think, so if you give them a little bit of your DNA has a little bit of your thought in it, because we get the DNA from other people and we get their thoughts that was in our gene pool. We don't only get their eye color, hair color, skin color, we get their thoughts. So same thing with energy beings, you extend yourself too much and you give them consciousness, and then they're on their own. If they can figure out how to do the basics, then they can live for a long time, because if they know how to eat. And people are the same way, as long as they can eat, they can go a long time.
True that.
And if you starve them out, then, they go away. If you put food out for your cats outside, 12 will appear, show up. So, it's the same thing.
That's true.
So it's the same thing. If something can feed.
Robert said like a tulpa.
Yeah. I mean, there's always very different degrees of everything because the thing I've dealt with a while back was something it was from the area like it from Israel. So it was Middle Easternish kind of thing. And I pretty much just talked to the American spirits. But there are, and there are very degrees. I mean, I have seen and met energies that they look pretty damn scary, but they were harmless, just
Right.
harmless. Elementals can be
Elementals can
very
look weird.
scary. They're very weird, and I've seen one that was really weird, but the face was beautiful and it's spooky, beautiful,
Was it a
beautiful.
human-esque face?
Well, I've done a lot of black-eyed kids.
Yeah.
Well, there are a lot of when I think of black-eyed kids, I know you have your own meaning for it. When I've known psychotic kids who have shark eyes, that when you look in their eyes, there is nothing there, and that's a special one. But like my friend Michelle, when she was having her energy thing, her eyes would turn total black. So black doesn't necessarily mean negative, because black as a color is a combination of everything. It absorbs. And
Mhm.
like in witchcraft, if you want to learn something, you put black on because black absorbs. Absorbs
I
heat,
didn't know that
absorbs
was why.
information. And if you go to a funeral, don't wear black. I mean, we were taught wear white because you don't want to absorb the sadness. You want to put out positive energy. But if you put in black, if you're in a black car in a white car, and you sit in the black car in the heat, which one's going to be hotter, the white one or the black one?
Always the black one
Why?
because it absorbs the heat.
Yeah, well, and it absorbs the heat and the information. So sometimes black is not a negative thing. It's so you have to be able to tell, you have to be able to assess. And using your aura is a CAT scan. So you have to have that in good order, protecting so you don't absorb whatever you're looking at. But if you have an in working protected aura and you get around something, it will tell you what it is. Because it will scan its aura and you'll know information.
Is
Um,
that how you do that?
that's how, yeah, pretty much for a lot of it.
Because you're really good at that.
Well, but my aura has been working overtime for a long time. One of the most fascinating things I ever did, it was I kind of was sorry I did it when I did it when I in the 80s, but I worked for my aunt,
We
so I
regret a lot of stuff from the 80s, Mark.
honey.
So,
Oh, I except for some of that clothing. I wish I still had some of that clothing.
yeah,
Not that hair, but yeah, the clothing.
yeah.
But I lived in a place. My aunt's place was really bad because someone had got when they in between moving and coming back, they had rented out their house, and this person
Oh,
had done ritual up in the attic, but she was a self-styled whatever. And when she left it running, and so their house was crazy, and I was fascinated. And I was still trying at that time. I was in my 20s. I was trying to get over my fear. I still had the jump scare thing. I
mhm.
thought I got to get over that. So I went and lived in her attic for about a year. And let me tell you, those shadow people were incredible. But she had one there. I've told you before the story of
Yeah,
Gertrude, where she would tell, acted like it was a poltergeist thing. It wasn't. It was from
yeah.
old ritual that this person left running, and it was a fetch. And at night, you would, I'd been in there about a week and hadn't seen anything, and then all of a sudden, one night the room started getting dark, and in the corner it got really dark, and then this woman materialized out of the dark and came and stood at the corner of my bed. And they told me she would do that. Her name was Gertrude. They called her Gertrude. And her face was smeared out. She had black hair, had this big braid, and had this real dowdy beige 70s, 60s kind of dress. And she would sit there with her hands crossed and wait for you to tell her something. She was a fetch. And they would tell her go away, and she'd go away. So when she'd come out, I would tell her go away, and she'd go away. But the other ones would be running through the house, almost knock you over, zip, 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 zip. You'd hear them running up the steps, walking around. You'd see dead animals laying in the floor. And the first time I saw that, I saw this big Himalayan cat that it was obviously not living. And I watched it for a few minutes, and then I reached over to touch it, and it dissipated. So it was a leftover. And and it was Himalayan cats had been. I asked my aunt, and she said, "Oh yeah, there were 2 here in the neighborhood when we left, and we haven't seen them since." And but there was it just crazy stuff all the time. But I got fascinated with shadow people because there's so many degrees of shadow people, and some of them are bad, some of them are sad, some of them I feel sorry for, and then there's some it's like, ooh, girl. Ooh, girl. I have seen some things that's like, no. But in that house, it was amazing. But it got me over my jump scare thing of it. And it was good to do it. But by the time I got out of there, I was like, yeah, okay. I'm okay. I can deal with this.
Okay. And we have some more questions. Can I ask you some more questions? A lot of people don't get
that chance, to do. Sure.
I'm sorry. I changed channels on you. And I froze you. I have shocked Mark. So I'm going to text him and tell him to log out and log back in. And we're going to talk some about the things that he's got going on here. I can't type and talk at the same time. Oh, there you are. I was just texting you. So
okay.
That
phone is a flip phone. It's like
oh, that's right. I can't. I would have had to message you.
I would have got.
I always forget.
Tomorrow, I get that text tomorrow.
I do that to him, guys.
But yeah,
I'll text him and I'm like, oh no.
I didn't mean you talk so much.
I mean,
ask questions.
No, I mean, I love. I can talk to you for days. So,
sure.
And everybody else loves hearing this stuff too, because your knowledge is not the average Joe's knowledge, and your experiences are not. And what you know is pertinent really to everybody.
Yeah.
But I did want to, while we were doing the stuff, I wanted to go ahead and grab some of the questions that I've been seeing flying through here.
Okay, go ahead.
And
I see one right here.
Okay.
I see that one. So go ahead.
That's one of the ones that I wanted to touch base on because, if you're doing cremation, I had been curious about this myself. So, and for those just listening,
yeah. Well,
how does cremation affect spirit possession?
Well, cremation takes away the food.
Mm-hmm.
So what will happen is if it's an energy that's in a body, of course, the person's spirit will either transition and go through the filter, go into the dendrites, go into the consciousness, or not.
Right.
And if it hangs around, it'll find its own way. But cremation releases the energy. So what will happen is it will either go back where it came from, vibrated to, or it will find a body that's, you know, not being used, you know, because in a cemetery you have lots of bodies that if it can, I mean, even though you're dead, your body still has energy. So
Right.
they would have to find a body that, even though it's decomposing, that it could access or use or be around or even absorb the methane gas. Um, but I think cremation would pretty well release it.
Okay.
And it's if it's looking for its food source after cremation, then you know it would look at the family, it would look at whoever's around, or a lot of times since they go into cremation, then they go from the crematory to the graveyard or get scattered or you know or get taken back home. So depending upon what the circumstances with it, but I would say mostly when that's done, then they just go find something else to do
Right.
because there is no body, there is nothing to stick with. Like with Michelle, when it was finished with her, it just found a way and got out. So the cremation destroys all of the mineral content and everything. You just become ash, and it pretty well destroys DNA as far as I can, you know, tell. So except for you know if you can get you know maybe some DNA from teeth and stuff, but most energies and spirits have to have food of some sort. And so they're going to transition, either go back where they came from, go somewhere where they're magnetized to, or they match the frequency, or if they're taken in if the ashes are scattered somewhere, you know, I mean, it's because most crematories are pretty close to cemeteries, or, you know, there's a lot, I mean, there's dead bodies all over the place usually, but the crematory, they're getting cremated. Funeral homes, most morticians don't think about ghosts or hauntings or anything.
Yeah.
I knew one who had brought me to his funeral home because it was scary and it was scaring him a little. And it was very interesting. I had a friend with me and we were at this place and you could hear people shuffling and walking across the carpet and there were like a lot of people. And I thought it was my friend trying to scare me, you know. So I was scooting around the corner and she was in the bathroom and something was scaring her in the bathroom. And I was sitting there, I jumped around the corner and because you could hear all these people walking. Nothing. It was great, but you could still hear them walking
Right.
across the carpet. It was very interesting. But the mortician refused to, you know, think about ghosts, but he's the one who brought me there to look at it. He's going, what is this phenomena? You know,
Right.
what is this? And I said, well, I'm sorry to tell you, it's just people who've stayed, you know, but he was doing, his thing was to fix the bodies up, you know. So if a person dies and
Okay.
if they have an extra spirit or energy attachment, then sometime and they get buried, then the energy will just go and stay in that. And usually, you know, I mean, I've done a lot of them where they just stay with the body until there's nothing left to
Okay.
process. And then they can also, it's like solar energy, you know, they'll um, charge up when there's heat, when there's thermal heat, and then then they get active at night. So that's why there's so many that are active at night, because during the day they're soaking up energy and getting ready, and then when it's night and there's not so much other activity, then they're functioning. So that's why ghosts
That's
are kind of
interesting.
active at night, because they're like a solar light. And but they absorb so much different kinds of energy. You know, it can be the methane gas, it can be the minerals of the body, it can be um sometimes in buildings where they live, you know, if there's a heater, if there's anything, you know, because we have chloroplast, and a lot of things have
Yes.
chloroplast in their cells, and that's they do I can never say this. Photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis.
Photosynthesis. They take light and heat and turn that energy into food. And the retinal, there were a lot of things before people that they fed through their eyes, just absorbed heat and energy through their retinas. And so, we do that. We take energy into our body. If you don't get enough sun, you get a deficiency of, deficiency or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's no different with them. They just do it, and uh, they just find a different way to eat.
That's so cool. Well, I mean, it could be alarming, but I think it's cool.
It could be alarming, but if you understand how that happens, then if you have that in your home or something like that, then you know what to change to stop the food. If there's no food there, it'll go away somewhere else.
Right.
If something has infected someone's body, like possession or something like that, at some point, if there's no more food or there's no more use, they're not getting what they need to out of it, they're going to go to where the energy is plentiful. So they'll leave, the parasite will leave the host and go elsewhere because they need food and whatever it is they're needing. And some of them can do that and some of them can't. Some of them get stuck in the body and don't know how to do it. And so then they only get released after cremation or after the body has totally broken down and become soil and is no longer viable.
So it would just go away with you going away.
Yeah.
Okay.
It would just, and like I said, even though your system is dead, you have your chakra mechanisms from, say like if there's a 60-year-old body laying in the ground, even though the electrical system is gone, the essence of it is still there. So there's still traces of chakra energy and traces of whatever, was in that body. And, so it's just a different form.
Well, wouldn't the chakra energy be part of the spirit energy? Or is that a separate entity?
When you come into the body, the chakras are there. The spirit.
But the chakras are physical.
There are when you come in as a spirit, you've got all that stuff in the spirit neuron, the soul neuron. The body is like getting into the car. When the spirit comes in through the mother's solar plexus chakra, when the frequency through when because everyone has come through the process from the consciousness, so there's a tether to everybody. Everyone has a little fiber optic tether, which is your axon terminal, your cord. And when they come from the consciousness, the soul and the spirit neuron, they have a tether to the mother energy, whoever's been chosen that has the right frequency for you to be born in. When the mother goes into contractions, that frequency comes through the solar plexus chakra. The spirits go down the dendrite, down the tube to the solar plexus chakra of the mother, enters in through the mother's solar plexus, gets into the baby, the embryo, through their axon terminal cord, gets into the babies through their solar plexus, goes through their solar plexus chakra, then goes up and turns on the lights in their chakra and then sets up shop, And so, then during your life, all of that functions, your electrical system, your spirit, your soul, your blah, 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 blah. But everything, the soul gets plugged up into your third eye and into your pineal gland, and the soul hangs out here, does its thing. And then when you die, the soul goes in first. But after you die, the soul goes out last. The spirit goes out before the soul does, because it's what was being created while you're living. And but even though when the body ceases, the chakras were there before your soul came in. So the chakras are still kind of there in an energy form in the bone structure, because you have many you have many body forms, many chakra forms, and there's several layers. The soul and the spirit are different. You have your plasma body, you have your soul, and your spirit are different than the plasma body that is containing all of your information while you're living. And so when you die, a lot of times the spirit and the soul may go on, and what's haunting is the personality, because the personality is who you were. Your spirit has created the personality who is you in this life. But when you die, at some point, it goes back to soul energy. It filters out, and the soul goes back with the information of what you learned in this life. But what you developed while your life may be, the personality may be so strong, and the physical, that is its own physical self. And so some hauntings are not always soul and spirit stuff. It can be the personality that was so.
I've seen some that I thought that was the case, but it wasn't something I knew was a possibility. So that explains a lot for me.
Many, many, many little layers. And so the body, when the body is dying, the body isn't really dead. The body starts decomposition. It's like, all right, we're going to do this. All right, we're going to do that. And then there's a process that happens for everybody pretty much. But all of the electrical stuff that was developed in your body, it's kind of still there in an essence. So spirits and energies, it's like if you go into a house, the person is gone, but the electrical system is still available. So if they move into a dead body, it's like if you move into a derelict house that happens to have some electricity and you know how to turn it on, then you can still access some of that functioning. So the body, until it really goes, then it still has some kind of energy and electrical stuff. And but like I said, it's like, even though the light may be gone, the person and everything's gone, the building was already there when you moved in. So that stuff is still there, and some energies can still access some of that enough to set up home and eat and live and be comfortable and be safe until something else happens, or they just, if they can't transition out of it, if they don't know how to eat anymore, or they get to where they can't, eventually they'll get absorbed into the energy around them, and then they'll just be processed into something else.
That's so cool.
And it's like
you're just such a font of information.
I've been dropped on my head, talk to the dead. Why should I know?
I know, it's so cool.
But it's it's not anything, it's not earth-shattering stuff. It's just but it's interesting to me. It's interesting to me because we think of ourselves, when someone's dead, we think of it, well, that body's just totally dead. It's gonna, but the body turns, and see, dark energy breaks down the body and stuff, or the bodies, or the plant life and all that. When it dies, it gets broken down. It has to be turned into food for the earth.
Yes.
And
it becomes one with the earth, right?
Yeah. Well, and then the fluids, which turn into oils and stuff eventually, that goes around like your engine in your car. If you don't put in oil, it'll crack. So the oil protects the outer crust from the heat heated center. So all the energies that all the life forms that turned into oil, that keeps the earth from cracking. And we
And then
pull
we
it,
go and dig them out.
we dig it out
So,
and put it in our cars, and then we wonder why the earth is cracking, because
yeah,
that was its natural coolant.
yeah,
But it came from living things that are no longer living, but it's not dead. All of that's not dead. It's like the plants. If you plant a flower and it's reaching up into the light, it has to put its roots into the soil. Well, what was the soil? It was living things
yeah.
that have turned into a different thing. So
Organic matter.
and some of it is thinking material.
Yeah.
All of this stuff that's in your body is DNA. So who's not to say what that when it breaks down and goes into the earth, that isn't being transitioned into something else or something absorbing thought,
Right.
from it. So everything is, and it's for us. If we don't have food, we die. So we found a way to eat food, but we're eating, other beings to do it, and we're eating the DNA off of them and their thought and their energy and their frequency, and other things do it to us. So, but not always in a bad way. It's just part of the world.
Well, circle of life.
It's a circle of life. But we
Okay.
separate ourselves from it when we put ourselves in the little metal boxes in the fluid that doesn't really do anything except get you through the few days to be viewed at. And it would be better if people would go back to no embalming fluid, be buried within a few days, just go in. And I've seen green cemeteries. I would love to have been able to have a green cemetery where you can plant a tree or a bush as your tombstone, and you let everything go back. I've seen people buried in the most beautiful wicker caskets, and they just go back to the earth, or even a cardboard box. I've seen people buried in cardboard boxes, but they can't be embalmed, so
Right.
but they go right back to the earth. And I thought, well, that's what we always used to do, and that's what we need to get back to. I think we've separated ourselves so much from it, and it's no wonder why we can't understand the basic processes around us.
Well, exactly. We've just taken ourselves out of
nature,
almost all of our natural.
Yeah.
Everything natural.
Everything natural.
I have, because we're going to, yes. Which is really sad because it's natural. But I have to go to this question that Robert has.
Okay.
But this was when he had asked about, have you ever channeled entities that never walked the earth as human? And then he came back to, and then we're going to go back towards skinwalker stuff. But anyway, he was like, Man in Black entities believed to be non-human in origin seem to attack humans in their solar plexus chakra.
Uh-huh.
So
that's what. Okay, well, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, and he had just put Men in Black, and I'm like, yes, this is the question. But because you do experience just about everything that there is to experience, because you are trained to recognize energy. You are trained to understand things that I personally struggle with, and you educate me a lot, and I appreciate that because, I just do. But I've always wondered about this because you do know a lot about everything. Men in Black.
I don't know a lot about everything. I know
you know a lot about a lot.
I know enough for me what I need. Now, when he keeps asking about a tulpa, see, I've heard the term. I'm not quite sure what the tulpa term is because I don't keep up with everything that's out there right now, but I need to. But the thing you were saying about the solar plexus, see, we have an axon terminal, which is our silver cord, which connects us to our solar plexus, because that's where your umbilical cord is. But that's where your energy tether is. And then when you die, you follow that tether back to the consciousness. And all of the information you've got all your life is downloading into that little cord. So when you were asking about, something about spirits will try to access you through your solar plexus from the front, because that's where our information comes in and gets processed. It comes in your gut, so you get a gut feeling. The Men in Black, that is there's many degrees of that. There's shadow people. I've seen the Man in the Hat derby thing. And here's the thing. In my aunt's house, the last thing that happened to me back when I was in my 20s, and this is what got me going, okay, we got to get a grip on our energy field so that doesn't happen again. But because her house was an open portal, because the person had opened a circle and left it running when they left. And that was and they wouldn't let me close it. They didn't want to think about that. They thought, well, that's evil, that's magic stuff. But they were letting this stuff
all the stuff running through the house obviously was not magic.
No. And the last thing that happened to me in the house, my cousin Judy, their daughter, they went to Florida and she came to stay with me because we were watching her husband's stepdad, my aunt's stepdad, husband's stepdad, excuse me. So Judy came in and we were ghost hunting, she was put a recorder down and you could hear something go, Judy, her name was Judy, and you'd hear this metallic thing calling her, and it freaked her out. So she wanted me to sleep in the room where she was sleeping because she was freaked out. And she came there to be freaked out, but she was freaked out. And so they had a big, one of those 4-poster bed things, and there was a dresser next to it, and there was a space in between the bed and the dresser. And I made a pallet and a floor, and she went to sleep real quick, and I was laying in there, trying to go to sleep. And at the foot of where I was at the foot of the bed and the foot of the dresser, it looked like a cutout of a man with a black hat.
Really?
Now watch. Now, this was my first experience with this. And I felt like I was given a big dose of Demerol. It was just like being given I couldn't move. I wasn't scared. Now, I've had, when you're dying, you get oxytocin, which is like this very nice, wonderful thing. But this was like getting a big dose of Demerol. It was just like, so you can't move. And so the black figure standing there, and out of the center of it, and it looked like a cutout. It looked like a guy with a fedora. And from the center of it, it oozed out this black stuff that went over my head because I was between the bed and the dresser. So there was this space above me, and it filled up with this gray gelatin plasma stuff that had little scratches in it, little black scratches. And which is what, a lot of ghosts and what we're made out of, plasma, some sort of plasma. And out of the center of it, once that covered me, out of the center of the figure came a big bulbous looking head with big black looking eyes. And it went through like this. It came towards me. And when it got to my face, it pressed into my face, trying to get in my system. And when it would press, I could see gray in my eyes, and I couldn't move, and I wasn't scared. But I said, Judy, wake up, Judy. Something's happening, and I can't move. And she woke up, and she didn't see that, but she saw the blanket waving like something was flowing against it.
Oh my gosh.
She screamed, And when she did that thing, went whoop, 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 retracted and disappeared. And I went, well, now I would know what to do with it. Back then, my protective system was crap because I did. That's how I learned.
Yeah, you were young.
Because now I learned. I went, well, that ain't happening again. And but I left. I thought, well, I don't care about stuff about knocking you over as you're running down the hall. I do care about something that can cover you where you're down to.
With you.
But it was
Yeah.
but it was a black male shape like a fedora. Now there's a voodoo thing where you'll see them with derbies.
Mhm.
But this was one of those Men in Black thing kind of looking things. But it was a portal. It was being a delivery system for the gray thing with the big eyes, So it was a spirit of that coming through, but using the human looking thing to be used as the access.
That's much more upsetting than like the UFO guy in Men in Black.
Well, but that's what that is. I thought, well, that's an interdimensional way that it's kind of getting
Yeah.
there. It took me a long time to figure out what the heck was that. And then I
Yeah.
went, well, that's a gray, but what is it doing
Yes.
to that?
And why is it
so
presenting as human?
as human, but it was the delivery system for it as an energy, and it was trying to push into my system. But let me tell you what, that whatever it is they're giving you, whatever chemical they're releasing, you are not afraid, but you cannot move. You can talk, but you cannot
Thank
move.
God.
And I thought, well, this is what happens to people, I think, when they do, when they're being, and that may be, but it was like an interdimensional thing. But it took me a long time to process it. I thought, well, what the hell was that? And it took me until I got older, and and that was years before I got murdered and everything. So someone said, well, maybe that was like a death omen, but it was like a year or two, about 2 years before I got murdered.
It doesn't really sound like an omen, though. It sounds like an experience.
It was an experience. But that open
Yeah.
portal thing, they wouldn't let, and they thought I was dead because I could see this stuff, but they were seeing it.
Yeah.
But they weren't. And my aunt never got away from that house. Anytime she would start to leave, that thing they called Gertrude would start crying, and you'd hear her crying in the walls. And when they finally, after years, they let it go back to the bank, and they moved to a senior home kind of, or condo.
Yeah.
And within a year, my aunt was she was getting sick. She didn't know why, and she was coming down her hallway, and she tripped and fell and pulled the TV on top of her, and she had to go to the hospital. Well, it turned out she had cancer in her lungs, and within a week she was dead. So she didn't get away from the house very far.
Yeah.
But a lot of that kind of energy will turn you into, cancer and leukemia because it eats your blood cells. So they got away from it, but not real far. But that thing, that was the only time I know of that happening in that house. But that was the first time when I'd seen what looked like a shadow person which was being used as a dimensional delivery system for something else. So that was interesting. But it looked like the Man in Black. It's fedora, black, just looked like a cutout. But that stuff it's made out of, which dimensional walls are made out of some of the same stuff. You look at it, it looks like gray jelly with little scratches, like marmalade. If you've ever seen marmalade, it's like marmalade, but it's little black scratches, and it's like jelly. It's real strange,
some
but
of the
it didn't have a texture.
okay.
I mean, I didn't feel the material, but when it covered it, it was like, when I got the whatever it is whatever they do to paralyze you. whatever they're doing, whether they're instigating that from inside your body or they're exuding it before they ooze over you or whatever they're doing, you don't have the sensation of feeling it going, because when it was pushing into my face, I could feel a little bit,
Right.
but it's a very interesting. I thought, whoa, that stuff, whatever they use for the paralyzing, it makes you feel good because you're not afraid.
Well, it's probably a lot like some of that medicine that they've developed now that you can have surgery and you don't move.
Yeah,
But
as long as you're not
it's
conscious.
that's
Woo!
actually really interesting to me because some of the descriptions that I've heard about, like the men in black who are relevant to UFO scenarios, are distorted.
Yeah.
The features are distorted. Some of the imagery that I've seen, in
Well,
fact, a guy, Graham Barker, was talking about this stuff in his book. It's the first Men in Black research I was
yeah.
ever doing, was going back to his stuff. And he's talking about these beings, but they're really not, their features are not well defined.
Mm-mm. They're just
And
projecting. They're projecting.
they are
Their
projecting.
auras, their auras are projecting, and for whatever reason, projecting a human form, they think is going to make you less. It's going to make the food less scared.
Yeah.
The target
But
less.
it doesn't really work like that, because
Yeah.
now people, since that period, I guess the 30s to 40s,
Yeah.
people know about them because
Yeah.
that legend is legion. I mean, it's
Yeah.
everywhere, but it's happened enough that it's not like Black Eyed Kids, which I think is a whole different thing. But what do you think? We've got 10 minutes. What do you think about Black Eyed Kids?
Now, when y'all are talking black eyed kids, now I've seen lots of people with the element of black eyes, or
Mhm.
things, or like I said, the people who are psychotic that just look like shark eyes.
Yeah.
Now, when y'all are saying black eyed kids, what are you referring to? I may know
Like
them as
the
something.
like the mythological. I mean, the kids that show up at people's doorsteps trying to get into the house, if you let them in, then
Oh, kind of like, yeah, they're not really people, kind of
right.
thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Everything is possible. Because I've experienced weird things, so it's not the thing that I've experienced with the dark eyes stuff, of course, is, mostly spirit stuff or people with the spirit stuff going on in them. The place that I dealt with, well, this is a good example, maybe, but this place that I was at, that's I call it the bad place, because it's a bad place. It's an energy trap. Uh, when I was talking to the Middle Eastern energy that they have contained within a doll, which is the transferring of self mechanism. When I was channeling it, they have what they call water babies in this place. Now, I didn't hear the whole story of it. My friend did. She understood what they were saying. But it was like these children energy. It was a bullshit story, what he was pushing. What they really were, I mean, I recognized one of them when I saw it. But he was calling them water babies to make it like they are. It wasn't really what they were.
Yeah.
But they're very dark haired, very dark eyed, very pale skinned. But when I was doing
Yeah.
the channeling of the Middle Eastern spirit, which it was in the process of telling me, it was like, I want out of here. I'm going to catch a bus and get out of here, you know. And it was wanting the person to come, it was looking for someone to get the hell out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was channeling it, I had on my 120-year-old velvet robe, and we're sitting there, and even though the place is dark, this little 2 foot, it looked like it was made out of onyx, but it was child sized, but it wasn't a child. But all of those things that I saw there had the dark eyes, had the very, very black hair, very, very pale, almost grayish skin. It's just because the blue, there's not enough oxygen, so their skin, what's in their system is the blood is blue, because they don't get enough oxygen,
Right.
and because they're feeding on something else. And while I'm doing the channeling, this little 2 foot thing with a little, like a toddler arm, I felt something pull my robe, and I looked, and it was tugging at my clothes. And this little, tiny, skinny black arm reaches up to grab my hand, like, grabbing at me like a child does when it's trying to get its mother's attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to get the other people to look at it. I don't know if they did or didn't. But I was like, looking. But those were very black-eyed. They didn't have any black in their eyes. But those, he was calling them water babies. The spirits of unborn children who are looking to be reborn or to be born into life. They were children. He was saying this big thing about them. But the ones that were there, they had big black eyes, long black hair. Even the ones that didn't have long black hair, they had the very, very bluish, palish skin, big black eyes, no white in the eyes whatsoever. And almost, if you watch like The Grudge and things like that, I was like, really? This is what they look like? But they kind of look like that. They were just, they didn't look Caucasian at all, but they had very, very, very dark, very dark.
Okay.
And so I have experienced a little bit of that.
Well, I'm just going to tell you that now I'm going to have nightmares. So,
honey, if I told you some of the stories I've been through,
I know.
You would really
I know some of your stories, and they all freak me out. They don't really freak me out because I would.
Well, some of this stuff would be. It's going to make a great movie. I told Sin, I said, "All right, I don't know who you're going to pick to play you, but I want Brad Pitt."
There you go. That would be fun.
Eternal Evil.
Oh,
so
no, that would be fun because he could probably pull that off.
Oh, please. Find the hunchback next door. Because I'm hunchback and broken down. I'm like, who are you going to have play you?
Yeah. Well, we are just about out of time. Will you come back?
Sure. Anytime.
Because this is so much fun for me. And I learned so much every conversation that we have. And I just love getting to share you because you do know so much about something.
I know.
And,
I know about when I know about it. I know about it. But if I don't know, say like the term tulpa, I'll have to look that up because it's been so long. I can't remember exactly. If I don't know exactly what he's talking about, I have to find out. I have to refresh my brain because I have been dropped on my head a few times. So I'll.
Well, by the way, Robert said, "While I have you both, love this show." I knew he would love you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the questions. They were great questions.
They were great questions.
And next time I come on, I will refresh myself on the tulpa. But the black-eyed children, I have experienced it. But actually, I experienced one about a month and a half ago. But it was freaky.
You're going to have to tell me that, but we can't do it on the air because we've got like 15 seconds. So everyone listening, thank you so much for being here tonight. We have had the best time, and I know you loved Mark. And this is Mark Elliott Fultz, the fat psychic. He's not. And so, Mary Strickland, I love you, and thank you for that white light and blessings. we'll see you next week. Same cat time, same cat channel. Go out and check fatemag.com. See what we got going on. See you next time. Good night.